So how did you get to be an entrepreneur? What led you in that direction?
So I think that what happens with a lot of people is that they try out different things and they just feel like there's something better out there. I went through a series of jobs. I'd say it was probably about 5 years where I had felt like I had gotten to the height of my education. I have a master's degree and a doctorate. I felt like I was really good at what I was doing, but I felt like I kept getting a flatter and flatter head. And I say that because either I kept hitting a ceiling because I couldn't move up in my roles, or I was getting pats on the head because people thought, oh, that's good, but that's good that you say this, but then they were thinking more about themselves and their own egos
Right.
and weren't really moving forward with my ideas because they weren't their ideas. um, and so I got frustrated with getting a flatter and flatter head, as I think of it. And so I started side hustling as being a marketing consultant, and that first started almost 10 years ago now. I started helping small businesses where I thought they could need my help, or they could use my help. And so I wasn't always working as a marketing consultant in addition to having my salary job, but I did for the better part of 8 years. Um, and I realized that at certain points I was having back-to-back clients and back-to-back projects in my side hustle, that I got to the point where I just realized that I was so unhappy with my salary positions, and I have been unhappy for years, and I felt like I had the potential to do so much more. And so I figured if I was getting the work as a side hustling marketing consultant, then I could probably find the work as a full-time marketing consultant. So I made the leap about 6 months ago. And so that's what I've been working in full time for the past 6 months.
I think a lot of times we get stuck in salaried jobs because we feel like that's what we're supposed to do. Like that's what everybody does. And so that's what you're supposed to do. And for me, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur until like last year. So it was a whole new feeling and a whole new, like, I can be my own boss. I can actually do this. I don't have to worry about going to this job that I hate every single day and working for a company whose values I don't agree with, and going in a direction that my boss sets, then, they don't listen to me, but I have to do what they say anyway.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I did that helped me gain the strength to go out and work for myself is I looked at who my grandparents were and who my great grandparents were and what struggles. I wrote it down. I wrote the story of what struggles they had in their lives and how they pivoted their lives in response to those struggles. And on my mom's side, all four of her grandparents were immigrants from Italy, and I looked at what they faced at the time when they immigrated, and then what they did in response. And I realized that they basically constructed their own life journey, and I realized that everyone does that. I was able to get that lesson from my great grandparents because I didn't know them, but I could see the stages in their lives and what they did to pivot when they faced certain challenges. And there was a lot of entrepreneurial actions there. And I figure that should filter down. I just have to go out and do it and try it. So it was with that thought that I quit my salaried job, and the next day I incorporated my business.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. I've never thought of it that way. I usually think about um the mistakes that my parents and my grandparents made, and I think I don't want to repeat the same thing that they did. Some of them waited too long to follow their dreams to the point where they just couldn't. And for me, I've always been like, you know what, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be happy. And I was really thinking about that as a New Year's resolution this year. And I'm like, okay, what is it that's making me unhappy and how do I fix that? Even if it's something big, like where I live or, you know, my job, whatever it is, like, let's figure out a new strategy, which is one of those INFJ traits that I love, because it's like, okay, this is going to be a big thing, but we can figure this out and we'll keep thinking about it until we figure it out and have a better solution.
Something else that gave me the confidence to do this is I connected with other people that had gone ahead of me and started their own business maybe like 6 months before I did, or a year before I did. So I've actually met a couple people on Instagram. We responded to the same post. And then instead of just writing my comment, I reached out to two of the people and I direct messaged them. Then that led to, we direct message like a couple times back and forth, and then that led to phone calls, and then the phone calls led to continued support. They continued to support me over a period of months just because they liked the connection and they were nice people. But also I went on and I know not everyone can do this, but I went on a 4-week trip throughout Europe, and and I was traveling by myself, and I met people in every city that I traveled to that were entrepreneurs themselves. And I think that helped me because the countries that I was in Italy, Spain, and Portugal, the economies are different. And so I think for people to figure out their way and to be able to meet their financial goals, a lot of times they have to work for themselves.
Yeah.
And those conversations, they helped me so much in realizing that this was possible. And I actually had one taxi driver in Rome that he was taking me, I don't know, it was like a 30-minute taxi drive. So we had a pretty long conversation, and he was a very enthusiastic personality. And he, over the course of 30 minutes, he got so excited for me, and he ended up getting out of the taxi and shaking my hand and like wishing me the best of luck. And he's like, I am so excited for you. You have to do this because I wish I could do something similar. And he's just like shaking my hand in the middle of a busy street in Rome. And he's just like, best of luck. And yeah. And so I was like, well, if I have other people who I don't really know that are so happy for me, and if I'm having all these conversations that with each conversation, I am able to kind of format my own roadmap for what I'm going to do, then it would be so, it would just be something, I don't know how to put this. It would be something that I would still be living in the fear if at that point I didn't go for it. If I had all these conversations and I had all this support and I had, you know, more than a dozen people helping me out and cheering me on. If I didn't do this, that would be staying in fear, and that is not the kind of person I wanted to be. So even though I was, even though it's not been easy the past 6 months, and even though I was hesitant for years to work for myself, but I've been thinking about doing something like this for a long time. And I've been blogging regularly on different aspects of content marketing for 3 years. And so I was like, you know, I'm just going to go for this because I've been laying the roadmap for it and laying the tracks for a while. And I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be.
Yes. I love the idea of connecting with other people too. I know as INFJs, it's really difficult for us to put ourselves out there and meet other people. But what I've found is that a lot of my friends and family aren't really that supportive because they are not entrepreneurs themselves. They're stuck in their jobs and maybe they're happy, maybe they're not, but that's what they feel like is safe. And then at the same time, they don't know what a blog is. They don't know what a podcast is. They don't know what it means to have thousands of followers on Instagram, you know. So for them, it's like, you know, when I tell them I have 20,000 downloads on my podcast, they're like, what does that mean? And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So the biggest thing for me, like you said too, is connecting with other people who are doing the same thing and who are excited about it, who understand it. Because when you surround your people with those kind of people who, or when you surround yourself with those kind of people who are encouraging you and who understand it, it makes such a big difference. It makes you feel like not only you can do it and you can keep going, but you want to do it and you get excited about it. And then you have a whole lot more energy to
Oh
keep
my
going.
gosh. Yeah, it makes so much difference. I was talking with somebody who has a blog and she has a podcast and it's pretty successful, but she said she feels like she's kind of in a vacuum, that she spends so much time writing for herself, and her podcast is her, a lot of times her telling her own stories. Um, but I don't feel that my own experience as an entrepreneur is isolating, and I think it's because the connection with the people is something that I really enjoy, and I keep well now I have an alarm on my phone to go into Facebook groups where I know these groups are all people that have a common goal that I have. So I set an alarm on my phone like every day at like 10:45 to go into the groups for 15 minutes a day and go in and comment on people's posts to help people out. And a lot of times if they have a question that is something that I specifically work with, I invite them to private message me, and then that will turn into conversations and sometimes Zoom chats. Um, and that's one thing that I am realizing that I'm helping other people with, is how to figure out a process to continuously connect with other people. And I am advising people in doing that because I think it's so important, especially if you're a sole proprietor, a solopreneur, and you are working for yourself. If you don't have a community to support you, you're not going to be successful.